Alright, guys, I'm Tyler Moran, and this is my week 2 um, video discussion response. So, I've had the opportunity in my military and my fire service careers to work with some impressive leaders. And some of the traits or characteristics that I have learned to admire in those leaders include being trustworthy, um, pretty important in a leader, I think. Someone who leads by example, a kind of do as I do, not do as I say kind of person. Um, Someone who has the ability to motivate people, um, not only through their actions, but also their speech. I think someone who can stand in a group and articulate themselves well and motivate people um, is a unique skill set that not everybody has. And lastly, um, I think it's important for those leaders to have um, a reputation for being skilled at the job that they held, or position, um, the positions they're managing over, whatever they did in the past before they were the leader of the group or the leader of the organization. Um, and after doing some research, it seems that Daniel Goleman's 6 leadership styles that he describes in his book Primal Leadership are pretty popular um, amongst the leadership community. And these 6 leadership styles include the visionary, the coach, the affiliate, the democrat, the pace setter, and the commander. And the one that fits the leadership style that I admire the most, I think, is the visionary. And the description of this type of leader is that he has the ability to move people or mobilize people. He has a "let me show you" attitude. So as opposed to telling you how to do things, he shows and leads by example. They have self-confidence, and they can be a catalyst for change, which I think is huge for group dynamics and leading people. Because these types of people are hard to find, I think. As far as the leader's role in a group, I think it's just that. It's to lead. It's to lead the group. Lead the group to success, be a catalyst for positive outcomes for that group. According to Whelan, leaders are thought to facilitate the development of shared understanding and interpretation of reality among group members. And leaders are central to the creation and redirection of group culture. Basically, they're supposed to lead the direction of the people and the group, or the culture of the group. And although this focus may be essential to all leaders, kind of regardless of the type of group that they're leading, there's multiple ways you can do this. There are multiple ways to lead different types of groups to success. Each group may need a different type of leadership depending on kind of the phase that group is in order to thrive. In fact, Whelan suggests that you should adjust your leadership style in order to meet the developmental needs of a group at that particular time. So the next question is whether leaders are born, made, or both. And I think that they're born. When I think about this question, I think about the earliest times when I started viewing leadership, and I think that's when you're a kid running around the neighborhood. There's always that informal leader of a group, whether that's the oldest kid in the neighborhood or the coolest kid in the neighborhood or whatever. There's always that leader of the group of kids that you ran around with. And I think it's at that early age that people learn to be and kind of emerge from groups to be leaders. So I think that people either have that ability or they don't. I think people can be taught to manage, but I think leaders, you're either naturally a leader or you're not. With that being said, opportunity, I think, is the most important piece of leadership. You have to not only have the ability to lead, but you have to have the opportunity to lead. So people need opportunity as well as ability in order to be a leader, I think. So talk about opportunity to lead. The scriptural example of leadership that I think is probably one of the most impressive is the story of Noah. The idea of being told to build an ark and that God's going to flood the world. That's his mission to lead all these animals and his family kind of into redemption and restart the human race and save all the animals. It's pretty humbling. I can't even imagine being asked to accomplish that task. I think it's an impressive leadership feat on his part, that he had kind of the faith that he was just going to embark on this mission to build this ark, and that God was actually going to flood the world. And but he does, and I think it's an unbelievable story of leadership on his part. That leads us to power. So what is power? Power comes in different forms, I think, and in fact, it comes in so many different forms that there's multiple definitions of power. The Merriam-Webster dictionary has 9 definitions listed for power, one of which is the ability to act or produce an effect. This is exactly what you need from a leader in a group. The ability to produce an effect, right? The ability to motivate people to do something. The group, whether they like it or not, whether the leader is formal or informal, has empowered that leader. This is referred to as position power, being in a position that has power associated with its position. So, informal or not, that's position power. And I think that's not only an advantage of being in a leadership position, but it's certainly a burden as well. If you've ever sat in a leadership position and people are counting on you and trust you, it's a heavy burden. Heavy is the crown, they say. Let's see. Sorry, I got lost in my notes here. Yeah, so it's both a burden and a position. It's the leader's job to motivate and produce effect. And they can do this in many different ways. And one effective use of this power is to produce effect is to empower others. So once you kind of have a firm grip on your leadership ability and the group is kind of norming, and one effective use of your powers is to start empowering others. Start handing out tasks. Delegate tasks to people to kind of empower others. And this is not only to benefit the group to make them more efficient, but it's also to benefit the individual. In this week's attached reading, there's a statement that reads, "When you become an empowerer, you work with and through people. You enable others to reach the highest level in their personal and professional development." And I think that's important because all leaders need good followers, and in order to be a good leader, I think you had to have been a good follower at some point in your life. So in order to kind of it's a critical piece of leadership, I think, to empower others and to kind of bring them up into potential leadership roles. Maybe to replace you when you're gone, or whatever the case. Finally, the question is, what's the difference between power and persuasion? And I don't think there is a difference between power and persuasion. I think the ability to persuade is a form of power. In this week's reading, it says, "Some individuals are viewed as having power because of their ability to dominate others through physical prowess, verbal prowess, or charisma." And in my opinion, the power of persuasion is essentially the power to dominate others through verbal and charismatic prowess. So, again, I don't think there's a difference. I think they're one and the same. The ability to persuade people is is power, essentially, in my mind. So that's it for this week, guys. Signing off. See you next week.